How's it going, folks? This is Joe with Joe's Gaming Electronics, and today we're going to be showing you guys how to swap a battery on your Pill 2.0 speaker. Usually what happens is if you plug this into the charger port and it goes red, once it goes red and it's not charging, or it is charging but it's not showing that the battery is charging, or it says you're at 147% or 27% and it's not going beyond that usually means your battery is defective. Because of that, we're going to swap out the battery. Today we have our Joe's batteries. These are specifically designed by our team here. We got them all made and they work perfectly to replace the battery inside the Pill 2.0. I'm going to show you guys how to take this apart, assemble it back, and get this back to working properly. It's a fairly simple process. You only need 3 tools. You need a larger Phillips screwdriver, a smaller Phillips screwdriver. Here are the sizes right there. You're also going to need a pry tool to pry the board away from the battery. Excellent. We're going to start by peeling this back. Grab any side, doesn't really matter. We're going to just peel this back and try to keep the sticker on there as much as possible. That way you can reuse the same adhesive to put it back. If you don't reuse the same adhesive, it's going to be a little difficult for you to get this to stick back properly. So we kind of pull it up like this. We're going to flip this over and we're going to remove the screws here. 1, 2, 3. There's a 4th one right behind here. And then there's 2 screws here holding this cap, and then there's 2 smaller screws right here as well. So we're going to go and unscrew these. Once we unscrew this, we'll be able to peel off the shell and access the internals. If you guys need this part, all you have to do is email us. Our email information will be in our video description. Email us with your part request. Tell us what part you need for which model of headphones, speakers, earbuds, whatever you need, and we'll respond. We can send you an invoice with all that information. You guys can make a payment. We ship for free in the United States, and we do ship worldwide. It's going to cost you a couple bucks, but it's not too terrible for the pricing. All right, we're going to get the rest of these all removed. I have a tray here, a magnet tray. It's keeping track of all my screws. I want to make sure we're not losing any of the screws. Right here. All right, we got those removed. Now when you get these 2 smaller screws removed, we got our smaller Phillips screwdriver right here. We're going to remove that. Put them in a separate category here just to make sure that we can put those back properly. These 2 smaller screws hold the USB charger port right there. The USB, you can plug in your charging cable and charge your iPhone while you're listening to some music. All right, now we're going to remove this ring. I'm going to pop these areas up and peel this back. Great, so that pops off exactly like that. Now we have it in this area. We're going to make sure that we put everything on exactly how it came off, right? So we got this here. We're going to put this ring on this side. I'm going to put the other ring on the other side, exactly like we took it off. This is really important. All right, excellent. Now we're to the point where we can actually remove the shell. You can either grab a flathead or a pry tool, get in any one of these areas right here to remove this to get into the internals. It's going to pop out exactly like you see in the video. There we go. Now we're on the internals right now. We're going to open it up right here. We're going to do one thing first. We're going to disconnect 2 wires. Right here, there's going to be a little tab. We're going to loosen that tab up. This tab is for the buttons on the top. And then we're going to loosen up the second tab, which is for the speakers. And we're going to remove those together. And this is going to allow us to have free access inside the board. As you saw, we just removed that. We're going to take this shell, set this aside right here. Now we have the access to 2 batteries right here. They're held by 2 screws on each side, along with some screws here on the board. We're going to remove this jack right here. We're going to set this aside. Now we have access to the board. We're going to unscrew the board. set these screws aside. As you can tell, these screws have little washers on there. They're at a 45-degree angle. You want to make sure when you put them back exactly against it. That way it's a flush connection with the board and it keeps the board in place. We're going to remove those. Now we're going to remove the battery straps here. I'm going to set these to the side. Looks like that screw decided to jump there. We'll take it out later. Great. Now remove these. As you can see here, it's a pretty quick repair. If you've done this before, it's not super difficult. And if you need the part, all you gotta do is reach out to us. We sell the parts. We got that screw. Let's get the other screw right here. So now we have all the areas loose. This is the connection for the battery. There's your main board. There's the connection for your battery. We're gonna remove this connection and we're gonna peel up the battery right here. There's a connection right here. We're gonna be very gentle with this, but we're gonna pop it up a little bit. I'm gonna pop it just a bit up out of place. We're actually gonna take this and pry it out of its spot. And this will allow us to access the bottom side of the wires on the battery. Now we're gonna have this, we're gonna peel this over like this. We're gonna make sure we're really careful not to damage this flex right here. We're gonna peel this off right here. We got this old battery. This is a bad battery. We're gonna replace it with a Joe's battery. As you can tell, the wire is right in this area right here, and it curls up underneath this here, and then this cable curls in like this. This is all really important information. We're gonna go ahead and remove. Make sure everything's in its place. Get the other screw right there. Great. All right, so this is the piece that goes onto the board. We wanna make sure that when we put this back on, that it actually goes in the correct place. If it doesn't go into the correct place and doesn't clip back in place, you're gonna have a bad connection with your charger port. So let's make sure we put that back properly. All right, we got a new battery. Now let's install it. Got this going down here. I'm gonna get the wire to travel right in the same spot where it originally would. We're gonna coil it back this way. Great, now we have our connector right here. The connector is gonna go right into the board. Excellent, all right. Make sure these wires are back underneath there. We're gonna go put this board right over the top. Once this board goes in place, we wanna make sure that it clips back in place. So we're gonna go ahead and put this, and we're gonna apply some pressure to make sure that this point gets back to its proper location. We're gonna push on the bottom, allow some pressure there. Okay, get there, make sure it clips in place. Great. So right now, I'm gonna get a charger cable, the red one right over there, and I'm just gonna plug it in here to make sure that we're getting a flush connection with the end to make sure that we plot this into properly. Excellent. So right now we push this in, and we know that the board is pushed back enough where when you put the charger cable in, it's not gonna be out of place. That's really important. All right, great, so that's in place. I'm gonna go ahead and connect the battery. Make sure the connections just pop right in. All right, excellent. So at this point, we're gonna go ahead and put everything back in place, but something you may wanna do is go ahead and plug this right now into your charger port and make sure that power is on. All you gotta do is put the charger port cable in, press the power button, and see if the power is on. And that will give you a sense of assurance that the issue you are replacing will solve your problem. All right, now we're gonna put these screws in place. One at a time. I'm not gonna put them completely in place 100%. I wanna make sure that we can get our straps in at the same time. But I like to put this board back in place just to make sure there's no movement in there. And when you tighten these up, you don't want to tighten them too hard. You're going to crack the rubber seal or the plastic washer that they have here, and that's not preferable. So let's just lightly put this on. Make sure the board's in place. We're not going to have any problems with that. Great. Want to make sure this is all flush in there. Great. All right, good. Now we're going to put these straps back in. We're going to make sure that the battery goes into its housing right here. It has a little area, and these batteries are specifically designed to fit in there perfectly. These are 1050 milliamp, 7.4 volt batteries. I'm just going to tighten these back in place exactly like the factory had it. So usually why these batteries go out is because they last about 300 to 500 cycles, and after a time the IC that's inside there stops providing the battery to charge. That's why you'll have to change it. We also do repair this in our repair center. All you have to do is follow the instructions on the link I'm going to be providing you guys, and you guys can ship it off to our repair center. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take this and kind of slide this underneath just to make sure that we're not doing any damage to the battery. Go ahead and take just a pry tool. Just push this right below just to make sure that when the tap goes over the top, you don't get any damage there. Right. There's two different ways to do it. You can go over the top or below. I usually like going right below the tab, that way you don't pinch any of the wires. Let's try this one here. So we're going to try a different method on this one here. I'm actually going to pry this back up. And we're going to put the tab on first, and we'll just go right over the top of the tab. Perfect, that'll work. I get these last two screws in place for the brackets, and we want to make sure that the battery is in its place. It has a little housing here that's plastic to keep it in its place, that way it doesn't rattle or anything when you carry it around. Loosen that up and slide that right underneath. It looks like this is going to need to go right underneath it to make sure we're not pinching it. Let's go underneath. Perfect. All right, we'll put this in. And then we'll go underneath. That's what I thought originally, and that's going to be working a lot better for us. Great, so now that we got the wire snug underneath there, we're just gonna put that bracket right over the top. Make sure you're not pinching anything. There's a couple different ways, once again, how you do this. Depends how you position the battery, really. You can go over the top or below. This one seems to be below, and it's just kind of positioning where you wanna put it. The biggest thing is make sure you're not pinching any of the wires. We put the bracket on, we're We're not pinching any of the wires. The connection's in flush, which is really important. So right now is when you can test it to make sure that your repair is gonna be working properly. Put your charger port in, go ahead and make that, check it, make sure it's working properly. And then obviously you can test the sound, but you can't see if it turns on or not. And that's important. We just press the power button, and it looks like the unit turned on. It's illuminating white here, showing that it's in pairing mode. So we know that we just fixed the issue. This battery wasn't powering on before. Usually these batteries come pre-charged a little bit, that way you know it's working. So we know we repaired this issue. We're just gonna click the power button, and it turns off the unit. And we know that we successfully refurbished this unit. So we're gonna go ahead and apply the pressure on this and get these washers plugged in properly. Make sure that they're nice and flush. Always take pictures and leave notes in regards to how the factory puts all these screws, that way you can put it back. So this is a perfectly assembled unit right here. We're gonna go ahead and attach the other parts and get this assembled. We got this USB charging port there. I'm gonna put that in its place. Now we're gonna assemble the speaker. I'm gonna try to show you guys how we do this through the video and actually do it properly. So we're just gonna clip it in place. It's a little tight fit there. I'm gonna pry this little part back. Put the flex in there. Be really careful with this this piece right here. If it breaks off, it's a pain to fix. So just be nice to all these components. That way you don't have to be refixing them again. All right, so we have all those components in place, and we'll be able to assemble this and put the screws back on. As you can tell here, your speakers, everything is in place. Your battery is in place. I'm gonna click the power button. And now we have some sound here indicating that this unit is gonna be working properly once we refurbish it. So we're gonna put in the same way that we took it apart. We're gonna start with putting the top in. The clips are there. Then we're just gonna clip it all in place. Great, we got that all in place. Now this is the tricky part. We want to make sure that we get this part back on. There's a couple different ways of doing it, and I'll kind of show you my way. You can put this first plastic piece on. You want to make sure that it's all in its proper location. If it's off a little bit, it's going to be a pain to fix. So everything has to go exactly where it was before. Put that in its spot right there. Excellent. Make sure we don't screw with any of these buttons. Put these as far back as they need to go. So now we gotta do this. We're gonna try to install this without attacking any of these points. So we're gonna stretch it out. And as we're getting here, we're just gonna get right on top of it and try to slide this right in. Just gonna stretch it out. This is one of the difficult parts of putting this back together. Perfect. There we go. There's that. Excellent. Looks like this unit needs to get tightened a little bit. Pop this back in its place. Great. So now we have a perfect connection. We're clicking all these buttons, and all these buttons are functioning. If you're clicking these buttons and they're not going as deep as they should, it's because you didn't put this trim back on properly. So we want to make sure the trim is put on properly. That way you have a really good refurbished job. As you can tell here, everything is flush. All the buttons are working. We're clicking it, it's powering on. Now we know that this unit will be working properly. Let's go ahead and reassemble the rest of these screws. Once again, if you guys need any parts for any beads, we have them all. All you gotta do is reach out to us through email. Our email will be in our description. And I'll show you guys how to finish this off beautifully. I'm just gonna put a little bit of torque on there. Put it back exactly like the factory would. And like I said from the beginning, we're going to be reusing the same adhesive that was originally on there. All you got to do is put it back on, apply some pressure. You can also heat it up. It's going to give you a really good stick after that. This is some good tape here. You don't want to be removing the tape and putting some different tape because there's a really good chance you don't have the correct tape for neoprene type rubber to a ABS type plastic, which is a special type of tape you don't want to be screwing around with. We're applying. The first screws are in. This is the second sized screws. This is to hold the USB port in place. And then the last two smaller screws are there to hold the trim in place. And then we use a smaller screwdriver to get these working. And then the last screw right here. Use a magnet tip if you got it. That definitely helps. Alright, so all the screws are now in place. We're going to go ahead and put this all back on exactly how we found it. We're going to make sure one of two things is true. There's no bunching of any type of tape in any area. If there is, we're going to push that bunching back out. Now we have a really flush connection there. As you can tell here, I'm pushing some of this back. Make sure there's zero bunching on any of the double-sided tape or it's going to stick up and not look very good. Alright, we're going to reapply this back on. Put that back in its place. Alright, I'm just going to apply pressure here. Alright folks, there you go. You have a battery swapped on your Pill 2.0. We got this perfectly in place. And your unit's now working. Press the power button. The power is on, makes that noise, and you're good to go. Alright folks, if you guys need any parts, go ahead and just follow us and check the description below. If you guys want to follow our journey, what we do here at Joe's, check us out on Snapchat and Instagram at Joe's GE. You guys can always give us a call too. Our number is 201-898-5637. Thanks so much. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a great day.